Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to SPEAKPact. We are thrilled that you are here today, and you are in for a massive treat. If you haven't already heard of him, where have you been? We have Daniel Burris on the stage. And speaking of stages, he has spoken on over 3,500 in, I think it was many different countries over the span of 42 years. And he's been resilient. He's been a resilient speaker through COVID, through some massive things that have happened within the world, through 9/11, and still was an in-demand speaker in the worst of economies. So we're going to dive a little bit into what came first, the horse or the cart, right? What came first? So we'll dive into some really fascinating ways that not only has Daniel built an empire for himself on the back of the power of his voice, but how he stays relevant and how he continues to do so. So welcome to the stage, Daniel. I'm so thrilled to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's so great to be talking to people that are spreading the word on and speaking and trying to help elevate whatever they're trying to do.
I so appreciate your generosity. I mean, you obviously are traveling a lot. You've got a lot going on. And for you to stop the train, in your case, probably the plane, and hop on with us to pour into this audience speaks a lot of your character.
Well, I think of fellow speakers as professional brothers and sisters. Yeah. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So you're joining a family. All right. So that's the way I look at it.
All right, Daniel. So bring me back to the beginning. 42 years ago, probably feels like 42 lifetimes ago, right? What came first? Did the expertise come first? You were already a recognized expert in your field, or did speaking help you get discovered?
That is a really great question. I started out teaching biology and physics. So I was teaching, had an idea for an airplane design. So I built it, test flew it, ended up with 37 national locations in the first year. Wow, I was making money now. So I left teaching, started another company. So within 2 years, I had 4 different companies that were all doing great, but I missed teaching. That's why I was put on the planet. So I didn't want to go back to teaching because I can never go back. I can only go forward. And I used one of the principles that I teach, and that is to take your biggest problem and skip it. So I looked at all the things that I didn't like about teaching. And like, for example, the limited size of a classroom. And I decided to make the classroom planet Earth. The limitations of working for a university or an organization. I decided to skip that and have my own business. So I skipped all the things I didn't like about it, but I didn't start 42 years ago by speaking. If I would have to include and make it 43 years, because the year before speaking, I spent time researching. And I think this is an important message I want to get out to you, because I've observed many speakers over the decades, and the ones that have original content always do the best. The ones that are sharing content that I might have heard through other people, or I could have got off the internet or whatever, they will do okay, but they will not soar. So I had always been interested in technology. Again, I was teaching at one time. I always was interested in new innovations. That's my fun stuff to read anyway. So what I did after selling those companies is I took literally a year. And again, I was much younger then. So what I did was I spent 12 to 18 hour days, 6 to 7 days a week in deep research, looking at all innovations in technology all around the world, lasers, robots, fiber optics, genetics, digital. By the way, all of that existed back then, but it was in its infancy. And I realized it was not going to be an infant for long. So after doing the research, what I did was two things. One, I had to organize it. So I came up with the taxonomy of high technology. I had to invent that. But remember, I taught biology, so I knew about taxonomies. Came up with that, came up with some models. And then I had to give my first speech because it was like, what's the best way to launch this? And the answer is speaking. Let's face it, I don't even have to own the microphone. So it's a great way to launch. So how do I launch? Well, I decided to pick the most difficult audience in the world because I figured if I could get them, I could get anybody. And I had to talk people into doing it because they didn't want to do it. And that was 1,000 inner city junior high school kids. And they said, we don't like to put 1,000 inner city junior high school kids together in the same room at the same time. But because I had got an Educator of the Year award my first year and done well back in my teaching days, I said, all right, we'll give you a shot at it. And it was amazing because I was talking about their future. And then I started building off of that and speaking. And I think in that first year, I just looked recently, I think I gave 137 paid presentations, not counting all the other ones that were unpaid, because I wanted to be a screaming deal, keeping my fee a super bargain. Why? Because, who wouldn't want a bargain? I mean, we're getting so much more value than what we paid for. Holy cow. And let me share one more thing that can help people out in this. And that is, I remember I got my first job years ago speaking at a big IBM. So this is my big first Fortune 500, again, many decades ago. And what they did was they would fly in speakers for a day and a half. And you would get a half day with a group of IBMers, all of them would. Then you'd get another half day. Then the next morning you'd get another half day, and that was it. And if they liked you, you get more jobs. So I found out they give you an evaluation. Every one of them, they're IBMers, are going to fill it out. And they're going to rate you 1 to 5. 5 is great. 1 is horrible. And you'll get that. And then we'll add it up and see how good you are. And they said, and they're pretty picky, so don't worry about it. Now, I was the only guy that averaged a perfect score of 5.0. The key is, how did I do it?
Yeah.
That's what I want to share. How did I do that? Well, what I like to teach is how to be anticipatory versus reactionary, meaning I knew they were going to do that. So in the beginning, what I said is, now at the end, you're going to fill out a evaluation of me and you're going to rate me either a 1, horrible, or a 5, amazing, somewhere along that 1 to 5. Some of you will give me a 5, some will give me a 3, some of you might even give me a 1. And I'll be reading tonight in my hotel room why I got a 1 or 2 or 3. And I might be thinking to myself, oh, I wish I would have known that. I could have done that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start me out at a 5. And the minute I'm not a 5, raise your hand and tell me what I could do to get back to being a 5. And as I was speaking, occasionally somebody put their hand up and they said, oh, you're at a 4 now. And I'd say, why? And they'd tell me I would do what they said. And I'd say, am I back to a 5? Yep. Okay, good. Well, that's how I did it. And by the way, IBM, when I finished, said, whoa, we want to book you for more. And I said, well, you realize I gave you my introductory fee.
Love it.
So what I'm doing is kind of giving you a little bit of an idea of what I think is important. Number 1, do your research, come up with something original. I was armed with something original. I remember probably my 3rd or 4th year of speaking. I was speaking to the Fortune 50 CEOs. Now, back at that time, it was Jack Welch from GE. It was Gates. It was Steve Jobs. I mean, I had the Fortune 50 CEOs of all the big companies there. And the meeting planner said, well, they've all heard it all. So it's going to be a tough one for you. But, I knew they hadn't heard my material because it was original. You see, if I didn't have original material, oh man, I'd be in the fetal position down there just going, oh my God. But I knew I had something of value. There's something else I did. Let me just keep going if you don't mind.
Go for it. This is amazing. Yep.
Something else that I did that was really important. Well, several things, but one is get to know the audience. So before ever speaking, I like to find out several things. And I have a pre-programmed questionnaire that has a number of questions in it. And I ask before I speak the meeting planners and whoever I can talk to. When I'm there and they're all gathering and haven't sat down yet, I will ask people in the room gathering the intel. And I'm going to give you my two biggest, most important magic questions. And frankly, if I know the answers to these two, I got it nailed. Now I'm going to give you the second most valuable first, and that is, what are the biggest challenges you're facing today? What are the biggest concerns? And if I ask enough people, I'll get a pretty good feel of their pain points so that I know what I can address and how I can frame my material to help them with their pain. But the most important question, and this is really the killer question. Matter of fact, I could do a lot with just this one question. I will ask, don't think of me, I'm not important. Let's think of the entire audience because they're important. And let's not think of my subject. Let's think of the entire meeting because I've been at meetings that have lasted a week. I did one recently where there were 179 breakout sessions after my keynote. And that lasted a week. So I said, let's think of the entire meeting. If I could grant you a wish that everyone would leave the entire meeting with a couple of key points from you that would make you say, whoa, this is the best one we ever had, what would that be? And they will tell me, and I'll get their wish. And I ask, again, I'll ask as many people as I can. When I'm there at the event, I will ask people that same thing. And if there's a CEO, I'll ask the CEO, VPs, or whoever it might be, the top people in the room. So when I'm giving my speech, what am I doing? Well, I'm granting their wishes. And when, let's say the CEO of a company that hired me to come in is in the front and gave me his wish. Well, as I'm granting that person's wish, I'll just kind of glance over at them and then move on because they know I just nailed your wish for you, didn't I?
Mm.
And it's kind of hard not to have people say, God, let's book them again. So anyway, I'm just giving you some tips that can help. I've been rattling on. I haven't allowed you to even ask me a question. I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to get a few things out. Let me give you one more that's really important.
Go.
I
Yep.
can't help myself because I'm a teacher at heart.
Great.
And that is, people have asked me, they've said, are you nervous or were you nervous in the beginning? Like speaking to 1,000 inner city kids, for example. Or last year, my biggest audience was 20,000. The second biggest was 10,000. I've also presented many times to the Joint Chiefs, which is a very small group at the Department of Defense. So,
but yeah,
So so what is it? And the key is you got to leave your ego out of the room. You got to realize the speech is zero about you. It's not about you at all. You see, how can I be nervous if it's not about me? If it's about me, yeah, I might forget something. I might not look good. My hair might be messed up. See, that's all about me. Me isn't important. If I'm 100% focused on them, I have become one with them. And I got to tell you, the honest truth is I study them enough. I actually just fall in love with every audience.
Okay. Brilliant strategies. And
I fall in love with every single audience. And so I actually think love is one of my secret weapons.
And it shows through. You can't fake love. And when you try, people see right through it.
Exactly.
There's a reason, Daniel, that you have 1.2 million people following you on LinkedIn alone. That doesn't even include all your other spaces because you're hitting a chord. You have a communication style that relates. It feels boots on the ground, even though, we might be at the 5th grade level, you're already, a senior. Doesn't matter. You're able to communicate at the level that we can receive. And that's part of your strategy, really understanding. I love that you have a pre-show questionnaire that and both of your questions were very them centric. It didn't have to do with you. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to bring to this? What do they need? Who's going to be there? What's that ultimate outcome that they're going to want? Basically, in your own words, you care more about them. and it's going to show. And that's what they're going to launch onto. You are definitely the superhero if you granted their wishes, right? And
Oh
if that's
yeah,
your
yeah.
goal.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Something else I did in the early days, and many of you are in your early days now. That's why I'm bringing it up. All right,
Yeah.
and that is when I was talking with a potential planner, someone that, in other words, hasn't hired me yet. And maybe I'm charging more than they ever paid before, or maybe they're not sure if I'm exactly the right fit. But after talking with them, I know I'm the right fit. I mean, I know, man, I can nail this one.
Yeah.
But they're not quite there yet. I can tell they're not quite there yet. So what I'll do is I've done this and I've said, all right, tell you what, I'm so confident that I can knock it out of the park for you, exceed your expectations. That here's what I'll do. When I finish speaking, I'm going to get off to the side. You and I will stand together. And if I'm not the best speaker you've ever had, pay me nothing. I'll even cover expenses. Pay me nothing. And what does the meeting planner say? Well, if you're that confident, I'll pay the higher fee. By the way, I've never had one ever when I did that. I haven't had to do that in decades, but back when I did it, I never had one ever even want to talk to me off the stage. Because, well, first of all, I was good, obviously, but it was, they needed something to confidence. So as you're getting started, and again, you would not want to say that if you weren't sure. And if I'm talking to someone who's planning a meeting and I'm not sure I can exceed, see, if I can only meet their expectations, it's not good enough. I got to know I can do a lot more than you thought, and you're going to need it. I don't say that, but I need to know that.
Right.
If I'm not there, I will be not taking it. As a matter of fact, I had one recently where I was talking to somebody and what they wanted me to do was not exactly in line with what I do best. And I said, well, I could talk about that subject, but that's not my sweet spot. I can't exceed on that subject, but there's some other speakers that can. Let me give you some ideas.
Mm.
And by the way, what did they say when I did that? What are
Thank
the
you.
subjects you exceed on? Because they were wanting something I didn't exceed on, but now they're curious. And a lot of times I end up booking it anyway because they really needed what I exceeded on. They just didn't ask for that.
When
I know
we're
this
looking
is
for
a lot.
somebody to build our
Hopefully,
home. Oh,
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. When we're looking for somebody to build our home, do we want the person who comes and says, well, I can, I could probably do this for $100,000. Is that too high? Do we want that person, or do we want the person who comes in? It's going to be $250,000 for me to GC. And these are the reasons why I'm worth it. Right. That I want the guy who knows that he knows what he's going to do, and I'm going to get the result that I want. And same thing for speakers. So many speakers apologize for their fee. It's $7,500, but can you really, where they really should be saying $15,000, $20,000, $25,000.
Really good. Really good. If you're, I actually was talking with a person who's been speaking for a long time, and I noticed he used a phrase several times, and I've heard other speakers do this that have been around for a while, and it sends a message they didn't even realize they're sending. And what they'll say is, yeah, I was speaking to a group and I got my full fee. I've heard that phrase, I got my full fee. Well, that immediately tells me, well, most of the time you don't. Which means your full fee isn't even your fee. That's your aspirational fee that you hope to get. So if you're always negotiating down, you're not at the right spot. If you're getting people that are saying yes, yes, yes all the time, well, then you're too low. It's.
And what I love that you said, Daniel, that you want, so let's say, I'm not going to ask you your fee, but let's just say your base is 25,000 for a 45-minute talk. Let's just say, this is not his fee. I'm not quoting Daniel's fee, but let's just say at that, you want them to feel like they got a screaming deal for 45 minutes of your time for $25,000, because they're not buying 45 minutes of your time. They're buying those decades that came together into solutions that they need. The shortcut, right? They're cutting a check for speed. They don't have to make the same mistakes. They don't have circle the same mountain, they can learn from you. And that equates to a whole lot more than $25,000 for them or their organization. That's what they need to walk away with. What are some ways that you plant that into the organizer up front? The big ROI. I love that you said you don't speak to what you can do, you speak to what can happen for that audience, the transformation that can happen. So talk to us a little bit about that. How do you confidently say this is a screaming deal for what I'm asking?
Yeah. Well, I never use the words, this is a screaming deal.
Right, obviously.
Obviously, I got to have them to see that the value is there, and that what can happen with them is exactly what they wanted, and again, more. So I think there are several things that can send that message. I have some options that 98% of all meeting planners take, and I'm going to share with this group what those options are because they're pretty amazing. And I've been doing it for quite a long time. Remember, I said that I like to talk to people and find out what their biggest concerns are and so on ahead of time. At some point when I'm talking to someone who's thinking of booking me, what I'll say is, well, let me give you another option. You don't have to do this, but I highly recommend it. Why don't we ask them? So I've got a little link I can send them, and it asks the audience 3 questions before I ever get there. And by the way, when they fill out their answer, it appears on an Excel on my end.
Ah, brilliant.
And, I'll even tell you what the 3 questions are. The first question is, what is the biggest challenge you're currently facing? Why don't I ask them? Typically, I'll get about 75, 80% of the audience that'll respond. And you
That's
can imagine
huge.
it's huge. But what is the message that you're sending? Well, the keynote speaker is actually not going to give a stamped out speech, is doing some customization. Wow, let's help them. The second question. So first question, biggest challenge that you're facing. Second question I give them is, what are you implementing today that you're most excited about? Now, the key part of that is excited about. What are they excited about? Matter of fact, I've had people that don't have anything they're excited about, and that tells me something too. And then the third question, remember, I'm helping people with their future. I'm helping people to actively shape the future. And the third question is, as you look to the future, where do you see the most opportunity? Mm. And of course, what am I looking for? What are they missing? What are they not seeing? What are the things that they should be seeing? Because that's how I'll exceed expectations. So that sends a message to the planner who hasn't even booked me yet, but now is thinking, wow, I like that. And then I do one other thing that I've been doing for a long, long time. When I'm speaking, one of the things I'm doing is helping people learn to divide all trends into one of 2 categories. Either they're a hard trend based on a future fact that will happen, which, by the way, gives you certainty in a seemingly uncertain world. For example, regardless of what happens to the economy, regardless of what happens with geopolitics, is AI going to go away or not be developed any further? No, it's going to be developed at beyond exponential rates, no matter what those things happen. Baby boomers in the United States, we've got 10,000 turning 70 years old a day. Is that going to stop? No. Are they going to get younger? No. So there's a lot of opportunities that we can see as well as problems we could pre-solve. So there's hard trends based on future facts that will happen, or it's a soft trend based on an assumption that may or may not happen. And I love both. Thing I love about a soft trend, don't like it, you can change it. Thing I love about a hard trend is I can see disruption before it disrupts, allowing me to turn disruption into a choice. I'd like you to have a choice. And secondly, it lets you see problems before you have them, so you can pre-solve them. I mean, let's face it, how many times have you said, well, I knew that would happen? And I would say, then why did you let it? So those are, with those 2 things. So knowing I'm customizing all of my speeches. Let me come back to that. All right, remember, I want to come back to that. Right? Because there's a little tip I want to give to people on that. But I customize my speeches, but I'm talking about some key elements, and that's one of them. So in the last 90 seconds of a speech, and I'll give you an example of one I gave recently, there were 1,000 CEOs from tech companies in the audience. All right, that's who the audience was, 1,000 CEOs. And in 90 seconds, here's what I did at the end, because now they get the hard trend, soft trend difference. I said, all right, in the next 90 seconds, and I gave them a little website to go to, and they could put it in on their phone. I'd like you to write down one hard trend you know will happen and a related opportunity. By the way, make it a good one, because you're only writing one, but we got 1,000 smart CEOs in the room. And if you all make them good, you're going to like what happens, because I'm going to collect them all. I'm going to analyze them. There will be some soft trends in there. Good. I love soft trends. We'll put that in the soft trend pile. I'll put it into a report and give it to you a week after the event. I'll send it to the meeting planner so they can give it to you.
Wow.
And so what are they getting? By the way, I'm doing collaborative innovation and sharing in a 90-second. There have been million and billion-dollar ideas identified that companies have profited from just from 90 seconds. And by the way, what am I saying to them? I'm saying, hey, look at what was done in 90 seconds. What if you spent more than 90 seconds on this when you get back? You see, all of a sudden, what do you have? And that's something that every meeting planner wants, take home value. Now, you can't do exactly what I do. And as a matter of fact, I've had a lot of people try to copy what I do, and I always felt sad for them because
They're missing.
You need to come up with what it is for you.
Right.
What do you do best? And we all have, let me get into another little, I mentioned customizing.
Yes.
I want to come back to that. I say I customize. I have some friends that I've known for many decades that are amazing speakers. I mean, kill it every time. And they give the same speech every time. Matter of fact, there's an old saying, it's easier to find a new audience than a new speech. So they give the same speech every time, but it's fantastic. And by the way, it works. That is one right answer. There's many right answers. If I was doing that, I would have quit years ago. I would have been way too bored. Now, am I saying that those people are less than or not as good? No. They're amazing speakers in high demand. You got to find out what works for you. I can't do that. I need to keep coming out. Now, I love to tune in. Matter of fact, there have been times when I had a slide deck put together, and as I'm walking on stage, because I talked to a couple of people just before I got on stage, I skipped the slides altogether and gave a different speech.
Well, and that really speaks to the fact that you know your material, you know your talk through and through. So it makes it a lot easier to customize. I love the way that you make the butts in the seats creators. You turn them into creators, innovators, and there's interaction there. Right? None of us would get bored with a talk where we feel part of actually creating it. And it's not this air that you're trying to put on that you actually care about me. It's actually, you obviously do. You're putting it into practice. So these strategies are incredible. And I love what you said about you have a choice to either recycle material or have your own material. And again, that can only come from a deep understanding, not only of your expertise, but the problems of your audience.
Let me just interrupt real quick and say, like this morning, I probably read at least 2 hours to keep learning, because here's something that in today's world, you're either going to be more relevant or less relevant. There's no middle. You can't coast. Well, you can coast, but you can only coast down at the bottom, right? You're either going to be the disruptor or the disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And I want us all to be positive disruptors. Now, how do I define a positive disruptor? Because negative disruption is when disruption hits you and now you got to crisis manage and put out fires. I want you to be an opportunity manager of your future, of your life. I don't want you to be
opportunity manager. Can I borrow that one? That's amazing. I'll give you credit.
All right. Okay. Yeah. We need,
because I see so many speakers coasting. Like I need an agent. I need bureaus. I'm going to sit here and wait for them to determine whether or not I'm going to have.
Let's talk about that for just a second.
All right.
I came from teaching, right? And universities and schools don't hire speakers, so I didn't even know they existed. And then I started my own company, so I didn't know about that. So I was speaking for 2 years before I knew there were any other people getting paid to speak.
Wow.
So there were no bureaus, no nothing. I thought I was, creating something cool, And then I read about that there was a meeting of the National Speakers Association, and I thought to myself, wow, there are others, which was great. It was really good to discover that. And then I found out there were bureaus. But I want to come from a position of strength, not weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm trying to go to a bureau and get them to take, to book me or whatever, obviously I don't have much demand, and I'm a newbie, and they may not have time for me. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff that people that come to them is deep sixed, and they never even read it. What I decided was to get good enough for them to come to me. Now, I would have liked for some of them to come to me sooner, but they all did anyway. And so, am I good enough for them to want to find me? That's an important question to ask yourself.
Are you good enough? Are you positioned? And are you findable? How did you come up with that mix?
Well, one of the best ways to be found is through speaking, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you know if you gave a good speech? All right. If there's a line of people that are not just saying, oh, we love your speech, but they're saying, oh, we need you for our meeting, or my CEO needs to know about you because they need it. And if out of that number, there got to be enough that could afford you, right? Then you will find a lot of booking. The word gets out. I mean, the word gets out. If you really exceed and you have uniqueness,
Mm-hmm.
the word will get out. Another quick concept I'd love to share. I assume we got a few minutes on this. You all have multiple talents. No question about it. Every one of you have multiple talents, and you can make a living off of talent. Let's face it, you're talented, it's fun. But they can keep you from discovering your true gift. Mm-hmm. And most people don't even know what their gift is. Of course, you won't if you don't look for it. Take it from me, you've all got a very special, unique gift. You've been taking it for granted all your life. Why? You're gifted. Can't anyone do that? And if you just make your living and develop your speaking and everything on your talents, you'll only go so far. And people that are using talents get up to a certain level, and then they kind of start peaking. They start coasting. But when you discover what your gift is and direct the talents to support the gift, it creates a thermal. I mean, if you were a bird, you don't have to flap your wings anymore. You can just ride the thermal.
Yeah.
So, what is your gift? Take a little time to think about that. And you might say it's sales. No, that's a function. Something else under that is the gift. So think of what is it that's the gift. Direct then all of those other talents to support it. And bingo, that can be huge for you.
You just transitioned so beautifully right into what was going to be my next question. You actually answered it perfectly.
I anticipated that. No,
you hear beyond the hearing, which is fabulous. So you talked about not recycling content, right? That needs to be, and it needs to be fresh. I like how you said positive disruption, right? We're all kind of droning, going this direction, but there might be a different perspective, another way at that solution. But I also see that in what you just said, we can often kind of mirror how we think we're supposed to deliver the content, how we're supposed to show up on stage, how we actually do the delivery. That also needs to be uniquely you. How did you develop your own voice?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I am last week, I got into a hotel kind of late, but I wanted to check out the room anyway, even though no one was in there. And I got the security guard to open it up so I could see what it, to see, does this need adjusting? Are there some things that need to be tweaked to make it even more? And again, I can offer suggestions. The planner may or may not do it, but I want to be there to make sure that I've got that covered. When I'm there, I get to know the AV guys right away. As a matter of fact, it was interesting. Here's another interesting thing. One of my early presentations, I walked, and that's when I had some back in the slide tray days. You had to bring a tray of slides.
Oh, wow. You've been at this for a while.
Yeah. It's been a long time ago, but I carried those all the time. Anyway, so I went back to talk to the AV guy, and I could see he was having some difficulty. There's one guy back there, and he was having some trouble. And, I asked if I could help. So I started helping him. And not just with my stuff, but with what he's doing. I didn't know. Turned out, I found out later that he was the head of Meeting Planners International, and he just happened to be filling in for a friend who was sick, and ended up bringing me to speak because then he heard me speak, really liked it, and we created a relationship, and he had me speak to all these meeting planners, thousands of meeting planners, which helped me get more speeches. You never know. So what I like to do is suspend judgment as often as possible.
Suspend judgment.
Us humans are judgmental, but it blinds us to discovering all kinds of invisible opportunities and abundance. So again, suspending judgment, I could have judged him as he's an AV guy. Or I could judge the person who's driving the taxi or the limo. I could judge anybody. And again, do I really have that right anyway?
You're also positioning yourself as somebody who is valuable, not a diva. You're great to work with. You've really positioned yourself in it. You've earned the right to be a diva if you really wanted to, right? But if you make that organizer's job easier, they want to make sure the tech is right. Their job is on the line, that you're able to do your job. So if you are able to communicate in a way that helps them make sure it's going to pull off as best as possible, they really do appreciate that. If you're doing it in a way where that is them centric and not you centric. Really, really quick story I'll share with you. Before I was an agent, I was a producer of very, very large scale events. And one of my keynotes came in, showed up just in time, never asked one question about my audience. And the first thing, before really even saying hello, that he was upset about, we always have a food and beverage right in the back in the green room. I didn't know. He didn't tell me. Otherwise, I would have had it there. I would have had my assistant get it. But he wanted this certain kind of creamer, Irish cream, whatever, right? And we didn't have it. His poor little assistant was a ball of nerves running around. I said, don't worry. I'll send one of my people to go and get it. You relax. Like, he had her in. He's a great speaker. He has a lot of accolades. I never called him back after that.
Well, again, it's about ego again, once again. And I know there are some speakers that have a big requirement, got to have a limo, got to have food at this point in time. And it's kind of like, that's not easy to work with. And it's, whatever you want to be easy to work with, very easy to work with.
Yeah. And I'm going to refer you over some guy who might also be a fabulous speaker, but they're a pain in the bottom. Right, to work with. Okay, at this stage of the show, there is no doubt there are a lot of people out there wanting to know, how do I find Daniel Burris? So how do you like to be found and connect with people?
Well, obviously, you could follow me on LinkedIn and join the conversation. I do a lot of giving and sharing on there. I think that's why I've got a large following. You could go to Burris, BURRUS.com. I have a couple of learning systems there on how to be anticipatory. I'm grateful that they're award-winning learning systems. So you might find some things there, newsletters and books, and you can find me on Amazon. So there's plenty of ways to find me. One other thing, since AI is playing such a big role in our world, I have, if you go to AIstrategyreport.com, you can download my AI strategy report. I've surveyed and researched over 1,200 different AI tools. I've got the top 5 tools in a number of categories that you probably don't even know what the categories are. And it could help you to get more specific about what you want to do. And I've got case studies of how companies are using it. You can download that. So I've got a lot of tools that people can use.
How generous. And that also transitions perfectly into my next question. But first, I want to reiterate, how did you get Burris.com? That you must have been at this for a while. So BURRUS.com. What a great URL. Love that. Go.
Yeah. Well, luckily, again, I'm really a technology futurist. So the internet really was around in the 80s, late 80s, or in the mid 80s. The universities were using it.
Yep.
And
That's when
then,
I was in university having to write code just to turn on the computer, like way back in those days.
and in my year of doing research, I was using, through a university, I was looking at all of the PhD dissertations that were taking place because they were all stored on there. So that was part of my research. So anyway, when we started to get, having websites and web pages, that's when I created a website right away, got the domains right away. And boy, I had a field day back in the early 90s because there weren't that many websites yet. So I, as a speaker, I was having, easily sometimes over 1 million would be coming, because
Hmm.
there were people that wanted to go and there weren't that many. So it was kind of nice.
Well,
Ultimately,
it illustrates the fact that you are truly a technology futurist, right? You actually walk your talk. Back in the day, I bought happycamper.com because I'm an outdoor enthusiast, and I let it go, not realizing the value. I'm like, what a dummy. Why did I let that go?
well, I've started a number of businesses. I created the first mobile app for the military. I created the first mobile app for real estate. That ended up
Nice.
doing really well, and it's actually created the foundation for what Zillow's doing. So I've done a lot of tech innovations over the decades. So that, I know tech, but again, I know a subject, and the key is having your expertise and your uniqueness. What is the unique value that you're bringing that no one else is bringing?
Well, you touched
I don't
on
want
this.
to be competing. I don't want any of you competing.
No, there's no room for
Leverage
competing.
your
Yeah.
uniqueness.
Share your uniqueness. I love that. And that's what I really wanted to dive into. So you are in an obvious in demand area, right? And I think there's a lot of speakers out there, especially those who focus on corporate training. I'm going to be replaced by AI. Right now they have ways that they can teach their teams and bring them to the next level through the power of AI. I don't agree, but I think that there's a fear of that. You are in an obviously relevant space. Can you speak to the speaker who might be intimidated by the fact that they're not a tech expert? And this is a world that's moving very fast in that direction, kind of a shoe in for the major corporations to get engagements. How do you keep yourself relevant?
Well, one of the great quotes of Abraham Lincoln was, "The best way to defeat an enemy is to make him a friend."
Mm.
So if you're seeing AI as your enemy, you're probably not going to have a happy future. What you want to do is realize we're getting into a future of augmented thinking, not replacement thinking.
Mm.
So let me give you the example. Here's a good way, because I think examples help us understand. If someone has cancer, they're going to be going to an oncologist. And right now, AI has absorbed all the research, all the oncology studies, all the MRIs, all the X-rays, all the chemotherapies, everything that's ever happened. It knows more than any single human, regardless of level of PhD, on cancer. All right. So if you know someone that has cancer, heaven forbid, I'm going to give you 3 choices. Choice number 1, a really good oncologist. Choice number 2, just AI. Choice number 3, a good oncologist that has access to AI. Bingo. There is your future. You
Ooh,
see?
so good. There you go. You're speaking back to your one of your core principles. Be anticipatory versus reactionary.
Yes.
Get
Yes.
ahead of
So,
it, embrace
so
it.
again, it's about augmenting our thinking, augmenting our training with AI rather than
Mm,
replacing it. You
brilliant.
see, like, because if it's just AI, it's not going to have the human element. Humans bring in things that, if you get to the fundamental level, remember I taught biology at one time, we're carbon-based life forms, they're silicon-based life forms, and they aren't the same. Now, I know I got into science a little too deep there, but the point is, we want to make us work together rather than eliminate. And I want to be upping my game.
Okay. Yeah, so good. So I just had the amazing privilege to actually work with a monk, right, who has a different approach to AI, which in itself is valuable. Like he is obviously all about humanity and talking about never losing that empathetic edge, right? And so while he's speaking on a topic that is very real, augmented, he, I guess, instinctively augmented it to almost being the adversary, but also very relevant. I think we all worry about that, right? Are all my friends going to be AI bots, or am I going to still have somebody I can love and hug, right? So I love the way that you brought that to the table. Augmented thinking.
And one other little thing to think about: we live in a increasingly technological world, right? But we live in a human world. Let's not forget that. And by the way, it's all about relationships. And there are good relationships and bad relationships, and the difference is the level of trust. So trust is the key ingredient to good relationships in this human world. So you want to never lose trust. You want to, whenever possible, elevate trust.
Mhm.
So I would want to make sure that if I am going to be using AI in something that I'm posting or writing, I will say in the writing, I will say, I was curious as to what AI would say. I would put it there and I would make it italic and offset it so that it knows this is me, this is AI. So I'm being honest with my readers. I mean, I have known AI for a long time, but I write my own stuff because I can write. I'm good at that. However, I can use AI to see if it gives me any ideas that I hadn't thought of or angles. And am I going to use what it tells me? Well, actually, no. I use it as a springboard to come up with a better idea.
Mm. Oh, that's another. I can keep going with you for hours. This has been so insightful. I have literally written about 12 pages of notes. I could go on. These are real life, boots on the ground strategies that any of us can start putting into practice for ourselves and be that unique, in demand, sought after speaker in our relevant expertise. Yeah.
So, is there a future for human speakers? And the answer is, oh, absolutely. We live in a human world. And there's a connection there that is extremely powerful. Again, I've did so many virtual presentations, especially during COVID. It was amazing. I think I mentioned to you my biggest audience in one of my virtual programs was 1.1 million. I've had some really big ones. But it is different than when you're in front of a live audience. There's a different dynamic. And there's brain waves going out that's very powerful. So I think there's definitely a future for us. We still have, it's all about trust and it's about relationship building and things like that.
Yes.
So there is a future for speaking, absolutely. No question about it.
You gave us so much, Daniel. Can you synthesize down? You know my signature question at the end of every SpeakPact show, and that is a challenge for our beautiful listeners. Right? We're all on a collaborative, cooperative, universal pact to make the greatest impact in our world. Hopefully, with the power of our voice, and each unique voice should embrace that unique edge that they have. If they could go out and practice one thing, what would move the dial, not only for them, but their audiences?
Well, there was a book years ago called Good to Great. And it started out by saying good is the enemy of great.
Mm.
I would say great is the enemy of extraordinary.
Okay,
And
good to great. Good is the enemy of great, and great is
is
the
the
enemy
enemy
of
of
extraordinary. Okay.
extraordinary. I would like you to be an extraordinary speaker, not a great speaker. And how do you do that? How do you really get to the level of being extraordinary? And I've done a lot of research over the decades of extraordinary people. And there are some that were born that way, but most weren't. Most were ordinary until they started doing extraordinary things. Mother Teresa at age 10 was not extraordinary yet. So, how do you be an extraordinary speaker? And one of the quick ways of doing it is before you do anything, before you write that post, before you write that blog, before you give that speech, before you put that PowerPoint together, whatever it is you're putting together, stop and ask yourself, what would an extraordinary person do? Think about that. You'll get ideas. Do that
Mm.
instead. Keep doing that instead. And after a while, what's going to happen? People start saying, you're extraordinary. Well, why? Because you chose to on a daily basis. So I'd like you to choose to be extraordinary on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And that's, if you're going to do one thing, that could be amazingly powerful. And again, leverage your uniqueness, use your gifts I talked about. Try to figure out what that gift is if you don't know right away. And if you don't know right away, that's probably normal. But again, you won't find something if you don't look for it. All of that's part of that extraordinary way of doing it. You're focusing on them, not you as the speaker. You're leaving your ego out of the door. It isn't about impressing them. It's about doing things that they can impress themselves with. So it's all about that.
Well, I love this. So not only are you telling your brain that you are extraordinary on your way to extraordinary, right? That capability is there, but you're also asking a question. And what I do know about our bodies in my limited span of physiological understanding is that our brain listens to us, right? And it wants to find the answers you're looking for. So what can I do today that makes me extraordinary? Like it's a question that your body wants to answer for you. Everything around you is going to want to answer for you.
And a little tweak on that, remember, was, but you're about to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask, what would an extraordinary person do? Do that instead. So now, instead of it's a general statement, you're actually focusing on every task that you do. By the way, what would an extraordinary parent do? What would an extraordinary teacher do? What would an extraordinary grandparent do? So you can apply that to everything. And it is, so the more specific, the better, because it's not a general statement.
Personal and professional. Love, love, love. This has been such a delight, such a treat. You really brought actionable strategic items for that emerging voice, but also for those more established voices that are out there. We all have, new summit. You get to a new summit, you see the ones that are on the horizon that you'd like to meet. So definitely, beautiful SpeakPact audience, make sure you find Daniel Burris on LinkedIn, at his website, burris.com, and also get his gifts at the AIstrategyreport.com. AIstrategyreport.com. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your time with us today, Daniel.
Thank you.
And for the SpeakPact audience, why don't you give Daniel some flowers today, and me too, for coming with you with all that we have to bring in this very short amount of time that we had, and post it forward. Serve the people in your world. Let them partake of some of this value that you received today. And in the meantime, we will say ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPact.